welcome to The Spotlight, where we explore how our mental health and identities intersect and influence each other. I'm your host, Liesl, and I'm here today with Harpreet Singh Grover. He's a successful entrepreneur who now spends his time researching parenting and sharing his learnings on Instagram as The Curious Parent. And today we're going to talk about how mental health plays out in the context of parenthood. Harpreet, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you?
I am very good. Thank you for having me on this podcast. Though you're, preventing me from going out in the monsoons, which are about to leave. But I'm looking forward to do this and then going out in the rains again.
Yes, I'm hopeful that we have at least a couple more days of rain and cool weather before it heats up again. So we'll have this conversation, then off you go.
Thank you so much. I didn't know I had to take permission from someone other than my wife also.
Well, so are you going to you have a daughter, right? Are you going to take her out in the rains with you?
Yes, absolutely. It's an interesting question. An interesting question because we're going to talk about mental health. I'll tell you, what happened is that we have been in Bombay the last 5 years. I was in, Bhakti. I and my daughter Dia, we were in Gurgaon before that. And I have always wanted to be outdoors. Like I want to be outdoors. I want to climb. I want to go to the lakes. I want to take a swim. And in the last couple of years, these are all these forts we have, all these lakes we have. I genuinely think if you're in Bombay and you throw a stone, it'll either hit a fort or drop into a lake. It's that cool 1 hour outside Bombay. Yeah. So because you mentioned, in the last couple of years, what has happened is I'm like, I want to take my wife outdoors. My daughter, I want to go with her. I want to spend time here. And somehow it happened, but it did not happen as much as I would have liked. Okay. Now, parenthood, what happens is, I felt frustrated at the end of last 2 monsoons. So this monsoon, I said, hey, I'm going to go out with my wife. I'm going to go out with my child. We're going to go out as family. But at the same time, I'm going to make space for myself. And I will plan this 5-day trip where every day I'm going to climb a fort and go into a waterfall. Okay. And I just found one person randomly to go with. And for 5 days, every morning we would wake up, say a fort nearby, climb that fort, come down on fort, say a waterfall nearby on Google Maps, go to the waterfall, hotel nearby, go and stay. And
that sounds so lovely.
It genuinely helped, like I feel like I have enjoyed this year's monsoons. Without putting any blame in my head on my child or my wife or anybody else. And that is wonderful. It's a wonderful space to be in.
It is. I mean, and there's so much research around how refreshing greenery and nature is. And you do need that refreshment, and investment in yourself. It's self-care. And that's something that I think parents are expected not to invest in, or the demands of parenthood just get in the way. I'm so glad you did that. And thank you for starting us off with that anecdote.
When I think of it, I don't only think of it as, greenery. It's an expression of what I want to do. And I think one thing that happens when you become a parent is that you feel you're not able to do the things that you want to do. So I exactly. think like what you mentioned, creating some space for yourself and being able to do the things you want to do, doing them actually, gets us to a better space for the rest of 360 days we are supposed to be a parent.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you started off with this because I'm a parent. I have a 3-year-old, and your account feels like such a safe space for parents to learn and grow. And that just really translates well to talking about all of the emotions and stressors of parenthood, because I feel like that's not talked about. We are told that we come second and our children come first, but really to show up for our kids, we both have to come first. And when we don't prioritize ourselves and we don't care for ourselves, that takes a huge mental health toll.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And in my head, at least, it's clear that parenting is not about the child, it's about the parent. That's at least the way.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, that's the way at least I look at it. When I am with my daughter, or I'm saying I am a parent because I want to be a parent. I'm spending time with her because I want to spend time with her. I'm not in my head. I don't have any expectations from her when she grows up. I don't want her to be this way or that way. uh, I I enjoy spending time with her, and I want to create happy memories, spend a great day, and that's about it in my head.
That's lovely. And I'm sure that makes all the difference in your interaction together and takes some of the stress out. But I want to pick up off of this idea that of spending time together, because I feel that parents want that, and yet, between work and other family obligations and other expectations in the family, there's a lot of guilt around parenting now. This guilt that you're not spending enough time with them. Do any of your followers message you about that, or is that something that you think parents experience?
I think a lot of parents experience this, and I want to reword this in a different fashion. You know,
Oh, okay.
because I think this guilt is real. One can't say don't feel this guilt. Okay, this guilt is real because this guilt is about how our evolution has been. This guilt is about, what do you call, I'm saying there's a difference between action and thought, between what our body, our millions of years of evolution is wanting us to do, and what we are actually doing. So I think the guilt is real. Okay, and I want to say something here, which is that a lot of parents today, one of the things parents ask is, hey, our parents did not learn parenting, our parents did not read anything about parenting, why do we need to do it now? Like, what is this hoopla about parenting suddenly? Yeah. And I think it's a very fair question, and I think the root lies in something that our parents did, which all of us should be very grateful about. And that is that they were there for the first 6 years of a child's life. One of them was there,
Mm.
Always.
Right.
And I'm saying this is important because evolution has prepped us for it. When a child is born, the need of the child is not to become intelligent. When a child is born, many of us say, oh, I want to work hard because I want to earn more money and ensure my child goes to the right college. Maybe I can send them to Harvard or IIT or wherever. But dude, that is not the need of the child. The need of a child's brain
Yeah, it's that attachment, right?
is to have a safe space. Is to be
Yeah.
safe, is to survive. And this safety comes from the presence of a loving adult. So our parents did this great job where one of them was present as a loving adult. Yeah. And so the guilt is real. And the need to be present for our children in the first 6 years of life, I think, is important. And if that is something that we can do, the rest of our life we can be free. And the interesting thing there, Liesl, is we can have everything we want as adults in this life. We can have everything we want. We can have a good career, we can have a kid, we can travel, we can have our wine, we can go to the pubs, we can have our me time, but we can't have everything together. And I think that is where it trips up.
That's an interesting perspective. I don't know that we can have everything. I think it's a fairly privileged way to approach that we can have everything. And I think there's also a lot of guilt for people who know they can't have everything, and still have to put in that work just to support their families. But I also do agree with you that a lot of it is self-created, right? That we are trying to have it all at the same time. And that really, I think that guilt takes a toll. And I think it also plays into another aspect that I wanted to talk to you about. This, I feel like parenting has become very dominated by perfectionism. And that the guilt stems also from trying to do everything right, and then judging yourself when you don't. Is that what's your perception? Do you think do you agree with that, or do you have a different observation?
Yeah, I'm saying if you want to do everything right, I think it's a great way to be unhappy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great way to be unhappy. Like, we do what we do, we do what we can do, and hopefully we become better. I think I have made a lot of mistakes as a parent. It is only after making those mistakes that I started researching. Like for example,
I see.
when my daughter was born, I was in the middle of selling our company. I was busy, so my wife spent a lot of time with her. My wife also, she's a vice president in Nomura. So she also has a career. So when my daughter was 7 months old, the maternity leave got over. We put our daughter in a daycare, play school, whatever you might call it. We used to live in Gurgaon, and around that time, my daughter, fell in love with a blanket. Like children fall in love with that stuffed toy, yeah, or a blanket or something,
Yeah.
right? And we found it very cute. It's so cute, right? That the child wants the blanket. It's very cute thing to see. But
Yeah.
I'm saying
Hmm.
now that I research it, it's basically the child feels abandoned, and the child wants something which will not leave the child. Okay,
I
my
see.
parents are not here. What can I find which will never leave me? Okay, here's a
I
blanket.
see.
And some part of attachment is transferred to the blanket. Yeah. So I'm saying, would I call it a mistake as a parent? It's a mistake as a parent. My daughter still loves that blanket. The way to overcome that mistake is to give her our presence after I've realized that our presence is required, and be with her. So as my daughter gets older and older, her brain for herself becomes safer and safer. Her brain feels safer and safer, right? And she needs that blanket less and less. Um, so I just wanted to say that, one, to your question, getting everything right is a great way to stay unhappy. Everybody, um, you can say everybody makes mistakes as a parent. All of us, and it doesn't matter at all. As long as we can continue to improve, and as long as we can be with a child with love, that is all that the child cares about. A loving
Yeah.
a loving
Yeah, that's true.
presence of an adult is all that a child needs to be joyful.
Thank you so much for sharing your mistakes. I know it's not easy to do. And I know that must have been some time ago because I think your daughter is 8 now, right?
Yes.
So there's a little time and distance there in the way you talk about it with such comfort. But I imagine when you were actually coming to that recognition, it must have been more emotional for you. How did you sort of, I think, forgive yourself and deal with the feeling of, oh, I've made a mistake? Because parenting sometimes it feels so high stakes, right? It's another person.
That thinking, everything that you do does impact the child. But I'm saying, thinking of it as, oh, I am responsible for my child in this way, I'm saying, I think leads to unhappiness. The child is impacted by the environment. The parents can create the environment. The environment is, you, the grandparents, the neighbors, the city you live in, the world we live in, all of that impacts the child. So I think as long as we are mindful of the environment, and as long as we are mindful about being joyous, I think that is what we can do. That is what is truly in our hands, right? To be a joyful adult. And if you look at it, rather than saying, oh, I will teach my child so many things, I think, being in the moment, being joyful is something we can learn from the child. At least that's what I learn. So I'm saying, when I am with children, I'm in my head,
Yeah.
I'm not about, oh, I have to teach my child this or that. I'm like, oh, look, I have to learn to be joyful from this wonderful life.
That's actually like a mental health practice, right? That mindfulness of being fully present in any moment is actually a practice that is proven to help with difficult negative emotions and just improve your overall emotional and mental health. Like if you can sort of learn that from your child and apply it in your life, it's like kind of like a positive cycle that feeds on itself, right?
No, 100%. And I think having a child, because we are adults now, having a child opens up this window in the heart, like light shining through it. Okay. And we can either choose to use that window to break down the entire wall and look at ourselves in a different way, or we can close that window
Mm-hmm.
and pass on what people call generational trauma, right? Because my mother shouted at me, I'm going to
Right.
shout at my child. So, it's a choice that we have. And at least in my head, the choice is to break down the damn wall and, like, use parenting as a way to look at myself.
I think that's a very mentally healthy way to look at it. And I think also, for me at least, part of that window is extending like the same compassion I have for my child, I've started trying to extend to myself, right? Like there's this common refrain, like the child gives birth to a mother. And, it has this idea that it's just like a switch that you flip, like you're not a parent and then you are a parent. And while that's true, what it doesn't acknowledge is that there's a process of becoming a parent. It's an evolution itself. Like you grow and change as a parent, just as your child grows and changes, with age and development and experiences. So do you as a parent. And I think that window into watching them learn and grow and make mistakes and learn some more, if that has helped me, I think, tap into that and sort of, forgive myself, support myself a little bit just by acknowledging that, hey, I'm learning in this experience also. I've never had a child before.
Yeah, absolutely. I would actually, put it in the context of stop seeing ourselves as a parent. Stop taking this so seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I am myself, right? And I have a life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, parenting is one part of it. It's an important part of it. But I'm saying if I keep looking at myself as a parent, I put so much pressure on myself, it doesn't go anywhere. I'm going back to that, right? Can you be joyful? If you can be joyful, that is a great way to have a joyful and confident child. And that's about it. There is, no, for example, when you mentioned, Liesl, that, I was able to talk about this, my daughter falling in love with the blanket. And with some dispassion, is because of being able to look at it from afar. But I still remember, like my daughter got glasses a couple of months ago. And when the number got diagnosed, I was like, how stupid can I be? That I have been noticing that my daughter has been rubbing her eyes for the last 1 month. Why didn't I go to the doctor sooner? I now understand that she doesn't see screen so much, but I never realized, looking at books so closely in dim, very nice yellow lights we put up in our house can also lead to this. How can I be so stupid?
Right.
This was my first reaction to myself. Okay. And then it takes a few minutes.
Immediate criticism.
Yeah. You like blaming ourselves.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, absolutely.
And then you take a step back and you say, okay, here I am, and here is my daughter. What is so bad about having glasses? She's so happy. Oh, now I look like mama. Okay. Because the mother has glasses. Oh, it's a great way to bond. And what can I do now? I'm saying I can ensure I'm more mindful going forward. And, that's about it. Meditation and yoga has helped. I've now been practicing it for the last 7 years. Being mindful is hard. And being mindful, being able to spend even 30 minutes with yourself in any kind. I do inner engineering. That is where I learned yoga. But I'm saying one could do any practice that works. But spending 30 minutes for yourself in a day can bring so much calmness to you that it can change your life.
As much as, it helps to spend time with your child and be in the moment with them, like you also have to do that with yourself. Like I've not managed 30 minutes a day yet, but I've started setting an alarm for myself at like 8:30 every evening. And it's just like, it's titled like take 5 minutes. And basically it's a reminder for me to like put down my phone, just go sit somewhere and just let myself think and be. Because otherwise, you get caught up, like you're calling, you're checking up on your parents, you want to stay in touch with friends, you're doing that last bit of work that you didn't get finished before you had to go home to be with your kids. Like you're on social media even, like there's just so much that you can be doing that you actually do need reminders to just like we said before, like invest in yourself, care in yourself, just take 5 minutes, take 30 minutes and just be. You've talked a lot about joy and that's wonderful. And I absolutely think that's a great mindset to have. But I also think it can be so difficult to find as a parent, between, stress from work, stress from other family members, stress from the commute. Like there's a lot of stress in life and it can all, I think, culminate when your kid is going through a phase, where they're testing boundaries and they're not listening, and that frustration and anger kind of bubbles out. And then you immediately feel bad, right? Because you don't want to take out your anger and frustration on your child. They're just a child. But sometimes it's just difficult to control. And how do you navigate that? How do your followers experience that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think at the end of the day, I think the fundamental is this is happening because life is not happening the way one wants to happen. That I think is at the crux of it. And
Interesting.
the other part, this gets amplified in case of children, is because we feel now, do you have control over an accident happening and a traffic jam happening? No, that is clear, right? That is clear in our head. Can I control a traffic jam? I can't control a traffic
Right.
jam. But can I control a child? Oh, maybe I can control him. I can make my child study. Yeah, the child should listen to me. And hence,
Right. There is that thought. You need to listen to
right?
me.
So
Yeah.
it gets amplified in case of parenting. The stress gets amplified because this should be a situation that I should be in control of. I am a 40-year-old. I should be in control of this little piece. Yeah. Who's not listening to me? My mom doesn't listen to me. At least this guy has to listen to me. Okay.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that nobody likes control. Nobody likes control. And trying to have control.
Well, and you just can't. Like, you can't control another human being.
But we don't believe that, right? In case of children, we do believe that we can control and make our children the way we want to make them. And I want to reframe it. I think we can create a joyous environment, and the child will then become whatever the child will become. But when you blow up because of a child, that's a great place to introspect. That's a great place to understand, where is my anger coming from? If a 3-year-old goes and asks for candy, some parents will give the candy. Some parent will say no and mean it. Some parent will say no, then give in. Some parent will, shout. The point is, Liesl, that this is not about the kid asking for candy. This is about you. This is about who you are.
Yeah, it's about your own behavior.
So I think because how emotionally charged the kid can make a parent feel, it is the kids offer us a way to introspect and change ourselves truly.
I was trying to get my son to go to bed, and he was just refusing and kept getting out. And I realized that when he was younger, it was very easy for me to just pick him up and put him back in bed and insist, no, you need to stay in bed. But he's getting bigger, and now I can't physically. I mean, it becomes like a physical battle, borderlining on violent, because he's bigger, and that's not the relationship I want to have with him. And I don't, want to physically be with him in that way. And so I realized, like, this is not working anymore. Like, I have to do something differently. And you do have to recognize that your actions and your response needs to change. And that's what I think I meant earlier by growing as a parent. Like, it's not static, right? As the child grows, you have to grow also and navigate situations differently, because you can't, I mean, it sounds so obvious to say, and yet I still think sometimes it's easy to forget when we, just sort of get in the routine of parenting. But like, you can't treat like an 8-year-old like a 3-year-old, or a 12-year-old like a 6-year-old. Like, that sounds so obvious, but it's easy to forget. And yeah, you have to reflect on your own actions and behavior. And when you don't, I think that's where a lot of the stress lies. It's inevitable, I think, that an individual's self-worth does in part come from their experience as a parent. But I think sometimes it's a very sort of seductive pull to let that become the defining part of our self-worth, right? Like, when a child says, "Mama, I love you," like, there's no better feeling than that. But when we let that happen, I think that becomes a different level of stress. And that can also produce negative feelings in us, because you can't rely on anyone, let alone a child, to sort of like give you that, right? Like, you have to be able to find value in yourself in multiple areas. But it's, I don't know, how does it feel when your daughter says, "Papa, I love you"? Like, it feels great, right?
Look, I'm saying we are biologically tuned to feel great about this, right? I'm saying kids have these warm, wonderful eyes when they're born. It's not by accident. It is because the child is incredibly selfish. Because I'm saying, essentially, when we look at those eyes, we're like, dude, I need to take care of this little, body of life.
Yeah. They're like, look at me, I'm cute.
Yeah.
Don't you love me?
Yeah, it is meant to survive. Uh, and
Yeah.
absolutely, a child saying "I love you" is the greatest feeling in the world. There's no doubt about that. But I'm saying if you start living for that feeling, if you want that as a if you
Yeah.
want that
Yeah.
as a reward
That's,
for what you're doing daily, then that's a problem. Yeah. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I think that, and I genuinely think, Lizzle, because of the number of times you mentioned parent, obviously this is around parenting, but I genuinely think all of us are taking our role as a parent too seriously. I'm saying forget that you're a parent. I'm
Interesting.
saying you're a person. And if you can be joyous, you will, I'm saying, and create a joyful environment. That is all that is required. Don't take your role as, for example, when you put it as, for a 3-year-old parenting is different, for a 6-year-old parenting is different, for a 12-year-old parenting is different. It is true. What you're saying factually is true. But when we start looking at it in that manner, you see, oh, dude, I need to keep learning. I need to keep changing. It just starts to add up in the head as a lot of work. Okay. But
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
think if we can just be there joyfully with our child as a pleasant person, what needs to be done will automatically come. But creating this space between the child and our emotion is difficult. It is not easy.
Oh, so
Yes, it is
difficult.
not easy. And
Yeah.
I think being mindful, there are a lot of ways to get there. For me, introspection has helped, self-reflection has helped, writing a diary has helped, yoga has helped, meditation has helped. All of
Mhm.
these things add up, but it is a continuous practice.
I think it takes such self confidence, if that's the right word, or like at least self security, to sort of separate yourself emotionally like that. Because, if your child is badly behaved in public, it's so difficult not to take that personally as a reflection on yourself, right? And yet it's not. Like we just talked about, you can't control another person, especially not a child. Like if they're badly behaved in front of other people, that's, that's
that-
just what happened. That's what they chose to do. And we can only choose how we react to it. But their actual behavior and actions, it's not necessarily
I want
on
to say two
us.
things here. One
Mhm.
is most of us react because we are in a certain way and react, right? But I'm saying we can choose to respond.
Mhm. Oh, interesting. How can you explain that difference?
I'm
How you see
saying
that difference?
reaction is impulsiveness. The years
Mhm.
of conditioning that we have has had at children about, or we're feeling stressed, we haven't slept, all of that adding up leads to a reaction. A glass slipped from a child's hand and I am angry. I feel this anger is my
Mhm.
reaction.
Mhm.
Can't you be careful? Yeah, this is a reaction. You know, response
Right,
is,
right.
oh, are you okay? Oh, can you help me clean it? That is response because something has happened
I see.
and we can move forward from there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Uh, this response also
Yeah.
comes from this sense of space that one can create. And the other thing which you mentioned is this bad behavior of the child. Yeah. And I'm saying,
Yeah.
this thing about looking at behavior as good and bad, which essentially means acceptable or unacceptable. Yeah. Is again coming from our
Mhm. Right.
saying that, oh, this is acceptable to me, this is unacceptable to me. I want my child to be this way, I don't want my child to be this way. Okay, I don't want people to think about this like me, I want people to think like this. When we see that, then we
Mm.
want to control and then we want to correct, and that never works. It just leads to more frustration. Nobody likes to be controlled, nobody likes to be corrected. But the child lying there on the floor screaming his ass off in a mall because she wants a candy is the way she is because maybe the last time she did it, she got candy. Maybe she didn't sleep well the
Mm.
last night.
Right.
Maybe she's really hungry. Something is there because the child is not an idiot. Uh, and we don't need to be one. And, we can, if we can see that difference, then rather than reacting and giving in because, oh, how will people think of me, and everybody is looking at me, let me get her candy, or maybe giving a tight slap, or we can just go and hug the child, or we can just say, hey, I am there, we are not going to get candy, but maybe we can get something else. That, I'm telling you, that line alone, hey, we can't have this candy, but maybe we can have something else. Do you want to walk around and look? That alone can solve it, but it needs a certain space.
I like what you mean, like what you're saying by this space, like, and this idea of just like, sometimes you just need to sit with the child and let them feel what they're feeling, right? And just let them know, like, I'm here. Like, I'm not necessarily going to give you what you want, so that changes your feeling. I'm going to let you sort of ride out this emotion until your emotion, because emotions are temporary. It helps them understand that emotions are temporary, right?
Also, they'll come and go.
Exactly. But I think it's also like, it's so difficult to do that for ourselves. And then like on top of like all of the, like all of the complications of parenthood that we've just discussed, like letting your child do that also, it's also, I think, difficult to just sit with them. And yet, like you're saying, that may be all they need.
And like you said, no, like you can't have it. I'm just saying, that feeling that you can't have it comes from a sense of control. And I'm just saying, when for ourselves to change, because the fundamental thing is for ourselves to change. Essentially at Mitsu also, the whole idea is for the person to change. Yeah,
absolutely.
We don't want to pretend to be somebody else. We don't want to pretend to be happy. We don't want to pretend to be calm. We want to be calm. That is the whole idea. So
yeah, we want to know how we can help ourselves to be calm.
And that absolutely requires rewiring our brain. And when that happens, the entire wording will change. The word that you can't have it just won't arise. Maybe what will come is, hey, we can't have candy right now. I'm just saying the perspective just becomes more inclusive.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything we've talked through so far today has made me think, like there's an element of therapy in parenthood because therapy, it is all about self-reflection, and it is all about learning skills to navigate different situations in life and basically manage your emotions through them. I mean, that's kind of what parenthood requires also. You are learning and growing as you self-reflect, and you're changing what you do and how you respond, because you maybe see the effect it has on your child, and you see that there's a more positive way to do something, and there's a more positive effect if you do it in a different way, if you respond in a different way. And it's a very similar process if you think about it.
Absolutely. Free therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Just have a kid. God, no. That's not, no.
Okay.
That's not actual advice. No one take that seriously. Okay, so there's a couple of the things I want to ask you about. And one, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, because one, I think this is less tied up in sort of like the parent-child relationship and the emotions that draws out. And I think it just kind of stems from like love for the child. And that is worry. I think, all parents worry about their kids. Obviously to different degrees, at different points in life. But like, I think there is just this element of concern, that sort of flares up and goes back down. And how do you deal with it? How do you keep that from because if you really stop and think of like, oh my God, all of the things that could go wrong, that could happen, like it just becomes so overwhelming. And it's this, small person that you just love so much, and you want to protect them from all the bad things in the world. So how do you deal with that aspect of parenthood?
At least my realization is that if worrying is helping you, please continue worrying. Yeah, but if it is not helping you, then it is best to change tact, right? So at least for me, I focus on my circle of control rather than my circle of concern. I might have thousands of concerns for my child. My child is not getting enough outdoors. I live in Bombay. Air pollution will impact us. Is my child eating right or not? There could be thousands of concerns that could pop up in my head. I am going to reduce them to my circle of control and ask myself, is there anything I can do? And if there is something I can do, I will do it. And if I can't do, then I will let it be. My deep realization for myself is worrying doesn't help. Concern doesn't help. It actually adds a lot of negative to the relationship. If you're constantly worried that your child has eaten or not, there is a very high likelihood your child is going to develop a negative association with food. If the child always sees a concerned mother, a worried mother, like you don't think the children absorb everything. Their brains are plastic. They're made to absorb. If you are worried, the child is going to absorb that emotion.
I totally agree. And I think for me, like, part of it is also like that act of, what's in my control. The only thing I can control is am I sort of helping my child learn skills that can help them navigate situations that I worry about. Because at the end of the day, you're right. You can't control what happens to them. You can't even control them. The only thing you can control is if you are actively trying to help them learn to navigate the way in good ways and bad, right? Like, you don't want to only focus on the bad. But that's I think the only thing for me that helps me is thinking about that.
The truth, Liesl, is that there is a how would I say it? There is a win-win scenario there, because the fundamental need of the child, not the need, I'm saying this is how evolution has programmed us, is to understand the world. The more the child understands the world, the safer the child feels. And these are the skills we are talking about, whether to cross a road, or not. I'm just saying that there's a win-win there. The child wants to learn about the world, and by being there, by doing a very few simple things, you can help the child fulfill that need and be a confident child. And that's about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have a short life here. Let's just live. I'm saying, let's just have a good day. That's all, at least for me, there is to it.
Yeah, that being in the moment, just being present and appreciating what is, and not getting so overwhelmed by what we feel, what could be, what was, but just being present. Well, on that note, Harpreet, I want to thank you again for this amazing conversation. I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I hope everyone listening has enjoyed it and has found a little something to take away with them. And this concludes The Spotlight, which is brought to you by Mitsu, a guided self-therapy app for anyone feeling anxious or depressed. Have a great day.